Badass Attitudes, licensed here, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Certifying Badasses, one podcast at a time. Turn up your energy with Fruitful Friday. Here's Kelly Orchard.
That's right, man. We are turning up the energy on this Fruitful Friday. Thank you, Bobby. Kelly Orchard, the Badass Certifier, here with you. This is a podcast for successful badassery. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I've got a few apples of wisdom for you as we wrap up the month of January of Fruitful Fridays. I've also got some weekend vibes for the new year. Let's take a bite of some extraordinary badass habits. Why don't we? I've been giving away the badass habits all month long. And, I just want to kind of focus a little bit on that as we certify one badass, or what, badass is one podcast at a time. Get a little confused on myself on what I'm doing here sometimes, but the badass habits is a really great way for you to establish a healthy mindset as you begin your day. All right, so each day in my Badass Habits, you're challenged to just try one new thing, one healthy mindset. That is just a small step out of your comfort zone. And then I encourage you to make a list of those habits that you'd like to continue to carry on. It's not overwhelming, but it's definitely a challenge to do something different every single day for 30 days. So what I do usually is I recommend people just do one at a time, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about a couple of these badass habits for you. And then we're going to kind of go over how you might implement it for your life. So what about a badass attitude? In the blink of an eye, it's already happened. Your life can change. So your goals, your dreams, and your priorities are forced to take a different turn. So you're grateful for the little things, we've been over that, but you worry less about the big things. You can leave behind the history of yesterday and determine how you will use today's energy. So are you ready to make the big changes? Creating new habits helps you grow. And when you're seeking that growth, you focus on new badass habits. So when you're ready to learn to treat others the way you want to be treated, or make a difference in the world, or learn to forget, or make a habit of living without regrets, or to find balance, that was a big one for me. Or how about to make a habit of being a good role model and learn from your mistakes, or to challenge yourself. These are just a handful of different habits that you can try out and use. So let's talk about treating others the way that you want to be treated over the weekend. For your weekend vibes today. Do you remember learning about the golden rule when you were in grade school? Treat others the way that you want to be treated. The golden rule still applies to you even as you grow older and wiser. The way that we treat people is a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Think about that for a minute. When you treat somebody poorly, it says more about how you feel about yourself than it does about that individual. I know when somebody treats me badly, I understand that they're just projecting onto me an experience that they have had, or that this is how they feel about themselves. You are what you do. So control your road rage. Get a handle on how you speak to your server or barista or your colleague or your spouse or your child. Make treating others the way you want to be treated a new habit. Aristotle said, "Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those because we have acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." So as you go about your Friday and your weekend, I really want you to focus on some of these new habits that you're picking up in my badass habits, because it will definitely lead to this badassery life and this extraordinary life that you'd like to lead. Now, a little personal journey here. My late brother had set his intentions to live an extraordinary life. And although his life didn't turn out exactly as he'd thought, his passion for the extraordinary adventures he experienced in his work as a missionary turned out to be just amazing. He wanted to experience fame, but that wasn't in the works for his life. In the end, I doubt he was disappointed, though. How many of us begin our lives wanting to head in one direction, but end up going in a completely different way than we had imagined? Author Robert White writes in his book, Living an Extraordinary Life, "My invitation to you is to begin living every moment as though you are miraculous and deserve to live an extraordinary life. Fake it if you must, and keep faking it until it's real to you. The gift you will be giving yourself is a lifelong journey of discovery, one that is infinite and infinitely rewarding. Begin the journey today. The moment is now." So if you don't feel that your life has been all that extraordinary, today is the day for you to begin an extraordinary journey. And you can start an avalanche, because it's been said that the road to success begins with just the first step. You're here right now, listening to me give you some tips on some badass habits and an extraordinary life on this Fruitful Friday. These are just some apples of wisdom for you. So the same should be said to lead an extraordinary life begins with the first small but extraordinary act. Extraordinary doesn't just come to us. We must use our gifts to the best of our abilities, especially our passions and our dreams. Not too long ago, it became very clear to me that the good and the bad, the successes and the failures that I had experienced were creating a tapestry of extraordinary life experiences. I also realized that I had made that happen with my decisions. Whether it was a good decision or a bad decision, it was still my choice. Success or failure, it was still my choice. I learned from each choice, and that learning still contributes to my progress toward an extraordinary life. No matter what season of growth you are in at this time, in both your personal and professional life, you have the extraordinary ability to do something toward your success or failure. Professor of English and author K.A. Lady wrote, "We have one precious life. Do something extraordinary today, and even if it's tiny. A pebble starts with an avalanche." Look at the people in your lives. There's extraordinary stuff all around you. I'm a junkie about learning. It all began for me when I was in radio advertising sales. I had so much to learn, but my favorite responsibilities were getting to know the advertising client and interviewing people on the air in my role as a radio personality. I realized that I loved learning about what they do, who they are, what they want to accomplish. That love for learning about people, places, and things continues in my life as I call upon that passion every day as a personal growth coach and family and marriage therapist. Also, in my writing, you have no idea how much of what I've learned from others have become part of these stories that I want to tell. And it's not even about self-help anymore. I continue to learn from others and hearing from others. And now I'm writing novels. I've kind of graduated from writing self-help to writing novels now. I find people's lives to be pretty extraordinary. And I've discovered that when I share my personal journey with others, they often respond with a similar impression. My life, too, is extraordinary. Extraordinary experiences are all around you. So you just got to look around and review your life today and compare it with 10 or 20 years ago. Has it been an extraordinary journey? Today and this weekend, take a moment to appreciate the little extraordinary things that are in your life and all around you. Doesn't that sound like a great idea?
A growing attitude changes when it encounters courage. It becomes badass. Fruitful Fridays with Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and Weekend Vibes.
All right, so you've already been through some trials of life and you survived them. You've left them behind. You know you're already badass. I mean, you're here, right? I'm certifying badasses one at a time. And if you keep coming back, then clearly you're badass. All you need is a license to get your credibility and then build that unshakable confidence. Know who you are and where you've been. And that's what we've been working on this entire month of January, the B in badass. As a license gives you respectability, it also requires responsibility. Being badass doesn't mean being mean or cruel or gruff or rude or arrogant or lost or brooding. Being badass means quietly self-controlled, humble, ninja-like, cool, confident, successful, happy. So you get to decide who you want to be. Personal growth is probably one of the most significant and important components to what defines a successful life. Are you deserving of the title badass? I say that someone who's badass has a quiet confidence and a calmness because they've been through the worst and are better because of it. I see a badass as someone who fails because they keep trying. They will never quit, no matter what. And I believe anyone who has experienced life's lessons and continues to choose to grow is badass. And growth begins with healthy habits. I'd love to know which habits you're implementing for your badass success. Recently, a client of mine was sharing about a moment of insecurity in a decision that he'd made. We'd been working on positive affirmations, confidence building, and visualization to reduce the symptoms of anxiety. I had given him a pin with the License to Be Badass logo on it as we explored the affirmations that would aid him whenever he began to feel anxious without standing up for himself and setting boundaries when his boss demanded unreasonable requests. When a difficult situation arose and my client knew there was going to be a conflict, he pulled down the visor above him as he drove to the office and looked at the License to Be Badass pin he had placed there. It reminded him, "I am badass and I can handle this situation," he exclaimed to me. You know, daily affirmations really do work when practiced, and that's a badass habit to adopt. The moniker badass is thrown around a lot, and it's often a way to describe someone who has done something extraordinary or accomplished a great feat, has a confidence rarely seen in most people, gets the job done, is a problem solver. A badass is someone who has endured hardships yet hasn't given up, someone who helps build others up. Remember, badass is an acronym, and this is what it means to be licensed to be badass. Be yourself, be authentic, be your own inspiration. A, attitude is everything. You got to practice positivity. D, be determined, be daring, be disciplined, be dedicated. A, you got to acknowledge what's going on in your life, and you've got to practice some self-awareness. The other S, stay the course, be steadfast. And then the final S, successful badassery. So here's the thing. You might be ready to be licensed to be badass if you want to try something new. You want to set some new dreams. You need to, or want to start a new career. Maybe you're like me and you want to write a book. Maybe you want to retire. Maybe you want to start a business of your own.
This is badass territory. No sniveling. Fruitful Fridays with Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and Weekend Vibes. Let's take a bite of some Apple a Day topics.
Okay, now as we wrap up today, our fun Fruitful Friday, I want to give you some encouragement to plant some seeds of positive thought. All right, we talk about you've got to practice positivity. So here's a couple of seeds I want you to do. Science has shown that positive thinking benefits our emotional health as well as our physical health. The biochemicals that are triggered with positive thought have a feel-good reaction in our brains. Imagine how much your life will improve when you plant seeds of personal thought. An author who is known for her wisdom, C. Joy Bell C., wrote, "Inside that tiny seed lives the roots, branches, bark, trunk, leaves, twigs, and apple fruit of that apple tree. You can't see, feel, hear, taste, or smell any of that yet. Nevertheless, it is all inside that seed. The moment the seed is in your hand, all of that is in your hand too. From the root to the bark to the fruit, all you have to do is push the seed into the soil. And what makes anyone plant any apple seed? It is the belief that in the seed there is a tree. So, believe. To have a seed is to have everything. So what do you want growing from your thoughts? Plant seeds of positive thought and watch your life grow into happiness. That's pretty badass. So when it comes to personal and professional growth, I believe you can't have one without the other. If you don't love yourself, you'll never love what you do for a living. So you've got to love what you do. So while you're making some sort of transition, you've got to think about that. Do you have a passion for it? The opposite is just as true. If you don't love what you do in your work, you really aren't loving yourself very much. Who wants to go to work every day dreading their job? Wayne Dyer says there's no scarcity of opportunity to make a living at what you love. There's only scarcity of resolve to make it happen. If you're seeking growth in your personal life, it's time to take a serious look at your professional life. When we love what we do, we are happier, more content, and more satisfied. So is it time for you to resolve to make something new happen? If it is, there's no better way than right now. You could pull it off. You could put it off for another day. You could put it off for another week, or heck, another year. But how much will you allow yourself to love your life? Think about it. So let's plan for a new perspective. We are going to be starting another month, the month of February. And I have a whole new set of badass apples and the badass acronym and Mustang Mondays. So the things that I want you to know is what's going well in our lives. Let's plant some seeds for a new perspective for the next month. We hope it'll last forever. When we're struggling, we often think it will last forever. But every single day, you can be planting seeds for a new perspective. Open yourself up to a fresh idea. When we're young, there are foods we just don't like. I discovered over the years that my tastes changed. When I wanted to start eating healthier, I began trying new food options. Today, some of my favorite options are foods I couldn't stand long ago, or things I had refused to even try. What changed? My perspective. I didn't want to limit my choices, so I planted seeds to change my perspective. How can you change your perspective on life right now? Author Steve Goodyear says, when you assess your own life, consider it with the eye of a gardener. Underneath the surface lies rich, fertile soil waiting to nurture the seeds you sow. Even more, you can imagine, will grow if given a chance. So that's going to wrap up our Fruitful Friday for you. I got some weekend vibes for you first. Before we do that, I want you to take into the weekend your healthy habits. I'd love to know which habits you're implementing for your badass success. So this weekend, I want you to focus your thoughts on planting seeds of positive thoughts. All right? And so while you contemplate your readiness to get licensed to be a badass, a certified badass is a good thing, and I'm glad you're here along for the ride. But you know what's even better? Being licensed to be badass. Just ask Ocean.
What's this to be badass 2? Sounds like a code or a password, to be badass 2. Actually, it's what happens when you listen to Kelly Orchard and get your attitude certified to be badass 2.
Thanks for listening and getting one step closer to being licensed to be badass. Be sure to subscribe to continue on the bus to Badassville. Snag your Badass Habits ebook at licensedtobebadass.com. You can stay in the slow lane and get just enough tools for successful badassery, one podcast at a time. Or you can join the Badass Ambassador crew in the fast lane by checking your baggage with my Licensed to be Badass integrated program with videos, worksheets, and group coaching for motivation, mindset, and a fresh approach to living a fruitfully badass life.
Be sure to subscribe and hop on the bus to Badassville. Monday, again, we turn up the energy. Tune in and tune up. Be bold. Be brave. Be confident. Be badass.